Hello my friends, it's been a while. I've just been out for a week and a half in the Brandywine area. There's a lot of nice gardens and stuff in the area from the DuPont family, as well as the Brandywine battlefield. Now the historical site that they have partitioned off the Brandywine Visitor Center is much smaller than the whole battlefield. It's been 250 years the area's been developed. But I spent some time talking to some very informative park rangers who were happy to answer any of my questions. They loved my Brandywine map. Now behind me you see Washington's headquarters. And I asked if this was a kind of map. They had a map set up in his office in there. Looked really cool, but of course he was never actually in the headquarters. He was in a tent outside. And they had this basically a pen and ink drawing of the Brandywine battlefield. And they told me that Washington had no map of the Brandywine area. The only map he had was a fairly crude map, and it only went as far as just below Chad's Ford. So basically nothing that happened in the battle he had a map for. He had his engineering corps, his engineer, and I forget the engineer's name, sorry, drew up a map for him, which was kind of like taking a big pen and sketching out a map on a napkin. The map was about the size of the pub battle's Brandywine map, but all it showed was a line. This is the Brandywine, and then other lines tracing the road net through the area. And that's what Washington had to work with. Now the main engagement at Brandywine was on Birmingham Hill. The British were essentially attacking from Osborne Hill to Birmingham Hill. Now when I got there and actually saw Birmingham Hill from the Friends Meeting House, you realize that there's a lot of hills and swales and stuff. And Birmingham Hill was kind of a large sort of hill in the area. It was a large clear area where there was a field. But all around it on the map you just see, oh, clear terrain. Well, that clear terrain is very hilly, and you realize that that weapon range beyond about 100 yards is useless, because you're lucky if you can see 100 yards in an area because of the hills and stuff. Now today when I refight the battle, I'm going to be using my paperless written orders rule and try to stick to it. And what that says is that the first block you move when you're moving a command determines the facing of the whole command. So you can't be putting this guy over here and this guy facing this over here and this guy over here, and I'm going to come up and attack around. It doesn't quite work like that. You can move up like this, you can turn like this. Now you can leave blocks in certain areas, but if you move a block, it has to be with the same facing as the first block you move. Now if you form a line with those blocks, you can refuse the flanks. And a final caveat with that is that dragoons aren't affected by this. If you have a dragoon in your command, it can move around however it wants all over the battlefield. It has to be within command range if it's going to attack, but it can move around, scout, whatever you need it to do. And I do that because if you made it adhere to the paperless written order rules where it has to line up, it ends up not behaving at all the way they behaved historically. Alright, enough jibber jabber. Let's go down to the map. Now Washington was surprised by Howe's flank move. Here you see Howe along the flank. But by the time Howe reached the battlefield, Sullivan had made some adjustments. So it starts on turn 4, midday. I begin with Green's 3 blocks here at Chad's Ford. Washington has Nash's men placed here at Brinton's Ford, and his artillery is positioned so it's able to reach Chad's Ford and Brinton's Ford. Now Sullivan has Lord Stirling down here at Jones's Ford. Sullivan himself has troops at Whiston Ford. He does have scouts up here looking for these supposed oncoming British forces. And Pulaski and McLean are up here, what I like to call Brandywine's cavalry field. Here I have Cornwallis and Howe coming in with a wide front. Down below, Knyphausen will come on at Parkersville and fan out to demonstrate and threaten and hold as many Continental forces up here away from the main British drive. First drawn is Knyphausen, and he heads towards Chad's Ford. And there he is. Now ordinarily when you're playing, the labels are down so your opponent can't see who exactly is where. For my videos, I have them with the labels up so you have some clue as to what's going on. And I often do this as well when playing two-fisted solo, because of course I'm focused on what's most realistic. So I don't move them, especially because I have the information. What would that commander know and how would he probably attack? That's Knyphausen's activation. Next, Cornwallis is drawn. Now Cornwallis doesn't really want to go quite yet. He'd rather not have the colonists reacting to his moves. So he tries to delay. He gets a black result. He fails. Howe rolls for Cornwallis. Another black. He fails. The British come on. Now the British have come on. Now of course these fine British troops will sweep aside these small detachments of colonials. But because the colonials got the right draw and will move after the British, rather than fighting combat here, they'll be allowed to fall back. What this simulates, of course, is that they opened up, they fired. This is as far the British stopped here, made a line, and are getting ready to attack. Now Sullivan is drawn. He has everyone fall back a third. I moved this block first. Now with the orders rules, everyone has to form up facing that direction. And here they are, in their line. Now Lord Stirling hasn't moved, so he can stick right here facing this direction. Next, Greene is drawn. His troops have spotted a British column coming up the Nottingham Road. He holds tight. And last, Washington is drawn. Being drawn last is kind of a cool thing because it allows him now, he sees where everyone has moved and he can adjust it just how he wants it. But at this point, nothing has really happened at this early part of the battle. He's holding everything right where it is. This was turn 4, the midday, because remember, Howe and Cornwallis in this flanking move took all morning and didn't actually arrive till the afternoon. So here we are at turn 5, early afternoon. Now first drawn is Sullivan. His line is right here. If he's going to duplicate his feat of last turn, he's going to need to go after Cornwallis. So he attempts to delay. He fails. He has Stirling leave a detachment at Jones Ford and move up and join the line. And he actually positions his whole line slightly behind where it was. Now Washington's getting reports of a major British force attacking, not just a minor distracting force, but a major force. What's he going to do? He's drawn next. Here he has Maxwell's elite riflemen behind the militiamen, and he moves them into the woods. Now, Maxwell wasn't doing this at the time, but I've come along a couple hundred years later, and I've learned that what Dan Morgan did is he placed the militia in front of his elite riflemen, have them take a shot, and then get out of there. And next, Greene is drawn. Greene is going to hold right where he is because he sees the British forming in front of him. Cornwallis lets slip his dogs of war. And Cornwallis has attacked. Notice that you conform to the defender. Because this is the way the defender's positioned, the attackers lined up opposite each one. Now here with the cavalry, you'll notice I'm using the lapping rule, which means that as long as this is positioned like this, that's considered a flanking attack. And this comes from miniatures. You don't have to actually do this to get the flank. You do that, and if he's not opposed, he counts as flanking. And last, General Knyphausen is drawn. That's how General Knyphausen's advance looks. Straight line, refused flanks. And now this initial combat, and I'm going to start down here and work my way up. And there you have it. The Colonials lost 2 detachments, and the rest of the command is spent falling back. The Colonial Dragoons have held on the hill. This battle was actually inconclusive, and the Augurs fell back because this is not a point that they're going to fight or die on. Now again, Sullivan is pleading for reinforcements from Washington. Of course, Washington knows there's this huge force of British right in front of him, ready to cross the Brandywine. And he feels he can hold them at the Brandywine. But how many guys can he peel off from that to defend this? First drawn is Washington, and he recalls his cavalry, and they guard this gap in the woods. He has Knox's artillery fire on the British artillery as they're setting up, throwing them into confusion. And still they hold. Greene's men hold. Sullivan forms his line around Maxwell's troops. Knyphausen is drawn, and he deploys his bags just north of Quentin's Tavern. That allows his artillery to recover. Now all these forces are exchanging musket fire, but at this range it's not really effective. It's not going to be effective enough to reduce anyone to spent or cause them to retreat. Nevertheless, it keeps them there, which is their job. And then Cornwallis renews the attack. Cornwallis sets up his artillery on Osborne Hill. They can't do anything about this down here in the woods, but they can see Birmingham Hill. It's turn 6, a little after dinner time. Let us see how Sullivan's line holds now. Starting here at the Brandywine. Now, this is a spent unit, and this is a spent elite unit, so it can take an extra hit. Now they each score 1 hit, which drives back the colonial troops, but the elite troops on the British side ignore that hit. Here you have Von Donop's Hessian Grenadiers attacking Sullivan's disorganized men. Von Donop's men pay a price, but Sullivan's men are wiped out. Now here you have the British Coldstream Guards under Matthews, but they're spent, but they're also overlapping. 2 hits eliminates the militia who count the first hit as 2, so it actually be 3 hits, and they do 0 damage to the British. Maxwell falls back. The Grenadiers attacking Stevens' men. This time the Grenadiers are at a disadvantage. Now the Grenadiers only get 1 hit, and that drives the Colonials back. The Colonials do 2 hits on the Grenadiers, driving them back. Now when you see this in musket battles, it doesn't mean both guys are running away from each other. What it means is no one controls this area, and whoever gets back there next, firstest with the mostest, will control it. The fact that they move back a third means if they intend to move forward, it's going to take them a little longer to reorganize and form up their lines. So think of it as they're only going to be, they lose a third of their movement, just figuring that out, and then they can move 2/3 forward. Now there's not going to be 2/3 to move forward here, but that's the general idea. And now we have the cavalry fight. Now in both instances, these are all detachments. So they only do 1 hit and can only take 1 hit. Except these Jagers here are elite, so they can actually, they ignore the first hit. Pulaski's Dragoons are destroyed. And McLean's Dragoons and the British 16th Dragoons are both eliminated. And what that means is they both fought to the point that neither of them are really any good anymore in this battle. So when all is said and done, the Prussian Jagers, which are essentially mounted infantry, are the only thing left that's in any shape. Now as we move into early evening, Washington's position is getting very perilous. Sullivan's command is reaching a point of total exhaustion. First General Washington is drawn. He calls for Greene to dispatch some troops to Brenton's Ford, as he sends Nash's men to Birmingham Hill. He pulls his artillery back to Battle Hill, and he deploys bags. And that allows Maxwell's elite troops to recover. Next Cornwallis is drawn, but Sullivan wants a chance to dress his line. He tries to alter turn order, and every time I've tried to alter turn order, I've rolled black. All that you need to do for altering turn order is get a white result. But I've always got this black every time. So Sullivan tries and fails. And he can just move headquarters around, and I know the British are going to be attacking, so while I have it at hand, I'll push him back. And again, Cornwallis and Howe surge forward. Now when you attack with him forward, okay, that's setting the line, or the orders. Everybody on that unit. So he moves like that. He's positioned the same way as that unit. Now he's contacted the enemy, and he conforms to the enemy's frontage. Or I guess sightage, as you'd call it there. The Jagers come around to flank the line. And now Kniphausen moves, but this time Greene wants to jump ahead. Ha! The black again. So he cannot. Kniphausen crosses the bridge and drives forward at Brenton's Ford. Actually, it's a ford, there's no bridge there, but he drives across. He brings the artillery with him. Stern crosses, refuses to flank. His detachment is placed there, this detachment there, and this detachment shoots directly across, keeping the same frontage as Grant's attacking unit. Now, this over here, Kniphausen would have moved down here to organize all that. If these guys move at all, they have to be facing the same way, and their bags are unpacked. So they really can't leave these guys unguarded. And now Sullivan activates. Stirling's men fall back and support Nash. These poor militia are somewhat lost and they attempt to hide in that little swale there. Now it's Greene's turn. What does Greene do? Well, he moves his bags back to Dilworth, maybe even a little beyond. He's got nothing else to do, so Muhlenberg is nothing for it but to make a desperate attack. And that's how that looks. Well, let us see how Greene does here. Now he crossed the Brandywine to get there, so he's going to be using a disadvantaged dice. Even though they're not right on the Brandywine, he crossed it to get to them. So he uses the disadvantaged dice. First, Wheaton runs into a detachment of Ferguson's men. This is only a British detachment, but it's elite. The detachment does nothing and they do nothing. The detachment falls back. The attachment got them held up. Muhlenberg's drive on Grant. They both do 2 hits. They both become spent and fallen back. Basically, no one controls that hill. In the woods, Mad Anthony Wayne has crossed the river and is now fighting in the woods at a disadvantage. Wayne suffers 1 and the British suffer 2. The 71st goes falling back. This kind of leaves their bags exposed. And now we've got the British line attacking Birmingham Hill. You know what? The British get to choose, so they're going to do this attack first. Both doing 2 damages, both are spent. Oh, the Grenadiers are elite, so they're merely pushed back. They get to absorb 1. But Stephen's brigade is lost. I'll put the casualties up here. The Colonials have lost 2 detachments, Sullivan's brigade, Armstrong's militia, all their dragoons, and Stephen's brigade. The British have lost a detachment of dragoons. I noticed while editing that Washington's army would be broken at this point, but our narrator is blissfully unaware. Now they're attacking Maxwell's men up on the hill. That's amazing. Maxwell's troops drive back the British attackers. Matthews' Coldstream Guards and Gray's rifles. Now Agnew's brigade is attacking uphill and is lapped on both sides. So the British get a disadvantage dice, the Americans get an advantage dice. The British do 1 and Nash is spent, but the Americans do 2 and eliminate Agnew. This has been a harsh turn for the British. Now it's turn 7, early evening. Greene's attack, though 2/3 of his units are spent, the British aren't in much better shape and their bags lay open. This is going to come down to the chit draw. Now Kniphausen can't be 2 places at once. He can't defend this, he can't command this for a counterattack down here and still have these guys do anything. Now I can see that they could just walk right up here and capture the bags, but the British player wouldn't know that. Though he might guess, since the troops up here rallied last turn, that the bags are back here somewhere. But who gets to move first? He thinks there's going to be a lot of attempts to alter turn order and jump ahead. First drawn is Kniphausen. Of course he's happy about that. Can Greene jump ahead? Yes. So Greene is jumping ahead of Kniphausen. Let's put them over here. Well, now Kniphausen is going to try to jump ahead of Greene for a white result, and he doesn't. Sullivan's going to try and jump ahead of them. He doesn't. Cornwallis is going to try to jump ahead of Sullivan. He doesn't. To join the gang, Washington tries to jump ahead of Cornwallis. And he doesn't. Wow, went from a whole game of everyone failing to everyone passing in 1 turn. So this turn will have Washington, Cornwallis, Sullivan, Kniphausen, and Greene. Washington first. Flip all these up. They've all attempted to alter turn order. Maxwell is part of Washington's command. He falls back to cover the bags. His artillery has Henry Knox fire on the Yagers who are causing such problems. And it's a flank attack. They get a hit, but of course, artillery can't destroy a unit, but they're spent and race into the woods. Oh, and you know what? Most of these are from Washington's command. That means his command is exhausted and Maxwell could not have recovered. So he's still spent. Now Nash is part of Washington's command, so he falls back. Next is Cornwallis, and that is Cornwallis's attack. Next Sullivan's has been drawn. He pulls Sterling back. There is enough space for him to pass through here, and that's where he goes. Sterling is all that's left of Sullivan's command. Then we have General Kniphausen, who is here and this places those units in command and none of these guys in command. So these guys can't move to attack. He would love to attack those guys, but he needs to come back here and command these guys. Form the line on there. So if these guys attack, the only way they can attack is lined up the same way as this guy, which is here. He could be up here. He could position those guys like that, but now these guys position like this, they can contact that, and they can position like that. It's not ideal. I'd rather have attacked this and seriously threatened the bags. Poor Kniphausen can't be everywhere at once. And then Greene. Greene says, come on boys, here's our chance. Again, they attack all along this line here, but they conform to the defenders when they reach them. But you know what else? This, not only is this the line that they have to keep that facing, but that's as far forward as they can be. So those guys would have to stay just like that. What this ultimately means is that I can't craft exactly the attack I need to get in at those bags. this is the best they can do with the constraints they have. Alright, combat turn 7. Let's see what we got here. Okay, here they're lapping, so they've got an advantaged attack. It's artillery, so the artillery gets resolved first. They both do 2 damage. This is first, so they absorb 1 because they're grenadiers, they're elite. And then they flip to spent. The artillery takes 2, flips it to spent, and then it would have to retreat. But since it's unsupported, it doesn't have a unit behind it, it's eliminated. Now we have Maxwell facing Matthews. No advantage or disadvantage. Both are elite. Matthews does 1, Maxwell absorbs it, Maxwell does 2, Matthews absorbs 1, but he has to retreat with the second one. And now we have Gray attacking Nash. Nash is in woods, so Gray is disadvantaged. He drives Gray back. Now along here, reading on Ferguson. Ferguson's rifles go down. Now we have J. Grant being attacked by Muhlenberg. Both fight to exhaustion and are eliminated. Matt Anthony Wayne attacking in the woods. 71st drives them back, but they are eliminated. And here we have it. Last turn of the day. If Cornwallis goes ahead of Washington, he can capture the bags. Washington really can't protect the bags too well. If Washington goes first, he can pack up his bags, and the British get a minor victory. Down here, if Greene moves before Kniphausen, he captures the bags. The Americans have a decisive victory. It's that close. We'll reset all the HQs, and it's coming down to the chit draw. Kniphausen is drawn first, but of course, Greene attempts to jump ahead, which he does. So you have Greene ahead of Kniphausen. Well, Kniphausen says, oh no you don't, I'm going to go first. And he does. The question is, of course, what can he do? Now I don't pay terrain costs, but I do pay to change formation. And when you're crossing a ford, you have to change formation. So this, you lose a third crossing the ford. So now he can only move 2/3. Yep, he can't get there with these guys. Nor with Grant. So he attacks straight ahead, and Greene moves next. Greene contacts the bags. Now Cornwallis could jump ahead theoretically and contact the colonial bags, but they're defended. You'd have to fight that off in combat first. This happens first. Word goes out. The colonials are in our rear. Now if I had more time to think about it, I could have concluded that there's nothing Kniphausen can do to save his bags. So instead of trying to save the bags, I could have simply packed them up and moved them off board, which is a minor British defeat. Because I didn't do that, and the bags are captured, it's a major British defeat. Late in the evening. So close, but frustrated, angry, the British fall back. The colonials have won, and that was a very good game. Hold on there, Bubba Louie. I get so excited I forget to count things. Now you don't count these detachments, but these regular blocks all count for morale. The colonial army breaks when it loses 5, and they have lost 5, and they lost 5 a couple turns ago. They would have broke at that point. The British have only lost 3, and they can lose up to 6 before they break. So this was not an American victory. This was in fact a British decisive victory. Washington has to give Howe his money back and on a good game.